The Reformed Gamers is brought to you 100% independent and ad-free thanks to our dear patrons over on patreon.com/thereformedgamers to get yourself sweet, sweet perks such as uncut early access to the episodes, special episodes of the podcast, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/theformedgamers and consider lending support and joining the herd. Without further ado, let's hop into the show.
Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to episode 190 of The Reformed Gamers, the show all about theology, video games, and being 10 episodes away from 200. I'm your Xbox host, Logan.
And I'm his co-host, Adam.
And I'm his guest host, Micah.
Guys, I bought an Xbox.
What?
Boom.
There it is. Just getting it out
This is
there.
like the third one you've already bought,
Hey,
right?
hey.
Sold.
Hey,
Committed to, backed out of.
hey
all those
now.
things.
Hey now. Slow your roll there, sir.
Logan,
Handsome
is it
bearded
an Xbox?
Remember, Mr. I bought a PC. I don't need an Xbox.
Did you get you a Series X or a Series S?
This is
He went 1S.
This is probably a little too violent for this show, but right now when Adam did that voice, I just wanted to like throat chop him so bad.
He wanted Among Us. And snap my neck.
Well, I didn't want to go that far. I just wanted to like do a karate chop to your throat. Just
Wow.
guys, dear listeners,
I can play my PC on my home TV.
I knew I shouldn't have done this episode. I knew I should have been like, Adam, I can't do this
He's like,
recording.
we got an episode that tells you that you can play your PC on your home television.
Adam, shut up.
Got him.
Got him.
Dear listeners, if you're not a patron, you really should be, because we were all giggles in the pre-show, and it just, I don't know what it was. You guys brought up sports at some point, and I just lost it just because
It broke him.
I'm thinking about it. You guys brought up Mario Strikers, and it was a whole thing. If you're not a patron, you really should be. You could support our show as low as $1 a month and get early uncut access and just see all the madness that goes on before we hit the record button. It is something else. And I'm sure Skinner is sitting there going, yep, it's pretty nuts. It's a good thing we don't release it, because we would probably get canceled just because we're just not for anything offensive. It's just like, why does this exist? Why are they, what is going on here? Anyway, dear listeners, thank you for tuning in again. This is episode 190 of the Reformed Gamers, which is wild to think because we are 10 episodes away from 200. It's crazy to think that it feels like only yesterday we were recording episode 150, and just 2 weeks ago we were recording episode 100. So it's wild how time flies. Thank you all again for supporting the show in the ways that you do, whether that is through prayer, listening to the episode, sharing them with your grandparents, or supporting us on Patreon. We greatly support it. This episode, we're going to be talking about kind of the summer that's coming up. Going to be predicting some of the different things and talking about the different conventions and conferences and different things that we expect to happen, some of the things that we think are going to get delayed, and things of that nature. But before we get into that, a little bit of housekeeping. As always, there's new content going up on the YouTube channel in case you have missed any of that. Both videos of the Resident Evil Village demos are up there on YouTube. The second one, I actually brought my wife on because I had her play the castle demo, and she shared her thoughts on the video. And it was a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to Resident Evil Village. Put up a video today as we are recording on April 29th, a video that I streamed over in the Facebook group of me unboxing my Xbox Series S. And so if you missed that, you can check it out either in the Facebook group or on YouTube. Both are there. And then, of course, we'll have an update or a review coming up on the 8BitDo Pro 2 controller that I unboxed on the channel as well. Like I said, YouTube channel's hopping. We've gotten into a good rhythm of creating content for it. So if you're not subscribed, what are you doing with your life? Get your act together, okay? I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Okay, son? Go subscribe to the TRG channel. And I don't know why I made that as weird as I did, but just go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. But I'm gonna say that's about it. I think that's about it for the new content and stuff. But yeah, go check it out. Have fun. Without further ado, let's hop into the episode though. Why did I lost what I was gonna say, guys? I think I'm. Wow, there it goes. Yeah, no, it's gone. It's gone. Micah, why don't you tell dear listeners what you've been playing while I try to figure out this existential crisis I'm apparently having?
Yeah, man. Not playing. Sort of to continue off of what Adam was saying last episode. Sort of in this holding pattern, kind of before a whole bunch of really good games comes out. I know Adam has sort of got his games, at least one of them that he's playing, but I'm still sort of waiting for Eternal and Resident Evil and those games to come out. So in the meantime, I've been kind of going back and playing some older games. So I picked up, because the next generation, the PS5 Series X patch came out for Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered. I always have sort of this like every year or two itch to play a racing game. So picked up Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, and that's got the full 4K 60 treatment on PS5. And that game's a lot of fun. That's one of the classic Criterion, like Burnout, the Burnout developers making that one. So, kind of the classic, Escape from the Cops, where you can be the cops and, run down the racers and stuff. So that one showing its age a little bit, but still a lot of fun, just kind of overall. So yeah, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered. Booted back up God of War 2018, but since it had the new PS5 patch, so kicked that up and played that in 60 frames. That's still one of the very best games ever made. It holds up in every way. I haven't, replayed it all the way through, but just the first like 6-7 hours I've played, it's just so well. I haven't played it since launch, but goodness, that game is excellent. We've talked about it to death. And then lastly, real quick, my 10-year-old daughter has been playing Breath of the Wild. She's kind of been getting into that for the first time. So I've been kind of like replaying that with her when I can here and there. She's primarily playing it, but we'll like hop on together on weekends or whatever. And like we just took down the first Divine Beast, Ruta, together. And that was just a lot of fun. That would have been a pretty tough challenge for her. Not saying she couldn't have done it, but she wanted my help with it. So we kind of looked at it together and figured that out. That was fun. So there again, another one of just the very best games ever made.
Yeah,
Breath
definitely.
of the Wild and God of War. So kind of just playing some old games, waiting for Returnal primarily, which literally as soon as we stop recording, I'm going to go boot up and play, because it's going to be downloaded and ready to go. But yeah, that's about it for me.
Man, I have such fond memories of Breath of the Wild, and if I could replay that game again, like if it was the first time I could like play it again for the second time, I think I'm making sense. Words are hard. That would just be awesome, because that game is really something special, especially when you play it for the first time. It's just the sense of wonder and exploration. Oh man,
well,
both of the games, that and God of War. I wish I could do that for both.
It's been really neat seeing it through the lens of my 10-year-old daughter playing Breath of the Wild, because she's straight up in that. Just she wants to explore and just kind of she's just soaking out. Like she'll just come across a random house, not like a village, just a house or a cabin or something, and she'll just kind of like take it as her own. And like, this is my house. I want to live here. And just pretend and stuff. It's like she's not even doing objectives or anything.
That's cool.
And just enjoying the world and stuff. So it's really neat and kind of a refreshing lens for me to sort of view the game and not take it so seriously.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome, man. Adam, what about you, man? What you been getting into?
I've been in one game. Side thing before I get into, I've been doing this whole thing. I'm now a paw daddy or a puppy daddy or whatever you call them. We got a dog, essentially, is all I'm trying to say.
It's like a what?
There's some word, I don't remember what they call it, but anyways, I'm a fur dad. That's what it is.
Okay.
So we got a miniature schnauzer. Her name is Miss Maisel.
Yes. Sorry, I used to have a miniature schnauzer growing up. Those are cool dogs.
Yeah, she is. I mean, she's full on pup. She wants to bite at your ankles. She wants to play, bite your hands, and every once in a while, she's like gnawing on Brock's foot. It's like, yo, chill out. And he's just kind of like, what's happening? So Ren's smitten. It's been a good time. So that's been a good time. Just kind of spending a lot of time with the dog. It does pretty good so far. Picking up poop is one of the other side jobs that I have now outside of playing games. So I hate that part. But anyways, so that's been a fun update in the Solon household. But the biggest addition in my household over the last week has been MLB The Show 21. I am obsessed. I'm smitten. I haven't been this like hooked on a sports game since probably like FIFA 15 or 16. Like where I was looking, I actually looked on my PlayStation time played. That's been the most played game on my PlayStation.
Oh, wow.
It was FIFA 15 or 16, whichever one it was. So, but MLB The Show 21 is so stinking good, and I'm playing it differently than I normally do. When in the past, when I played MLB The Show, I would do basically just Road to the Show, and then maybe like a franchise with like the Braves or something like that. But I've got sucked into Diamond Dynasty, and that's all I really play. I've done a little bit of Road to the Show, but they have like moments that you can play where you can kind of relive different moments or different challenges. And I'm just trying to build up my team. I've started playing a little bit online today, which was fun. I got a couple of my first wins, but there's so many different things that you can do in this game. Like hopefully in the next week or so, we're going to be starting up a custom online league with some guys in the community. So really excited about that. Well, we've got, I don't know, maybe 8 guys. Logan, Mike, if you want to jump in, feel free to.
Yeah.
Where you play, you'll play everybody once, and teams with the best record make the playoffs and kind of go from there. So just, I think you draft a team too. I think that's how it is. You get everybody drafts.
So Adam,
team.
I've got it downloaded to my Xbox, but I haven't booted it up yet. And one reason is because it's a little bit daunting to me. A, I haven't played a baseball sim probably ever, and B, it just all those modes you kind of talked about, the Dynasty, the Diamond Dynasty, Road to the Show, all these, are those approachable in a way, or are they all kind of like?
Well, Road to the Show is basically you're just creating a player and you're bringing him up from the minors. So you pick a position and you play his at bats, and then they simulate it. And if, like, say you're a shortstop, if there's a play that's going to be going to the shortstop and he's going to be involved, then you play that. You can play that fielding if you want. So it might be the player stealing second. You go to second base to catch the throw from the catcher. It could be they hit it to shortstop. You throw it to first or for the double play or whatever. So Road to the Show is just you can jump into that one really easy. The biggest thing with all of them is play around with the different settings, because there's multiple pitching types. There's multiple hitting angles. Like I was just using the standard hitting, but there's like one that my buddy Drew told me where it's like strike zone 2. You don't see your batter as much, but it kind of zooms into the strike zone.
Gotcha.
And it makes it so much easier to like see pitches and read pitches and hit. So that's been like a game changer for me, is adjusting how I'm able to hit with that hitting angle. And then it took me a while. I played with most of the different pitching styles. So I do pulse. So it like pulses and you kind of want to hit it when it's at its smallest point to be the most accurate. So once you figure out some of those things, everything else kind of, base running, you can, honestly, I'm probably going to end up changing mine where you just want to do like automated running, because sometimes I screw up and I send both of my guys when I only want to send one of them, yada, yada, yada. All that to say, Road to the Show is the easiest, kind of just step in and play. Diamond Dynasty is, that's where, again, it's like, it's like all the other modes where you kind of are building up your players and you want to get better players, and you just have a bunch of random people. Like Madden does it, FIFA does it, like Ultimate Team, I think is what they call it in FIFA. So that's a fun one, but I haven't, in that one, you don't even have to play a ton of games. Like I've been doing a lot of different, what are called moments, where they'll say, okay, in this game, you got to get at least one extra base hit, or in this one at bat, you got to get a hit, or even sometimes get a home run. But if you fail them, you can start them quickly again. So it's not like every time you fail, it's like, oh, I got to load. It's like, no, you start immediately. So those are a lot of fun. You can play for 5 minutes and accomplish some things, or you can play for an hour or two. And then with that one, you open up different like card packs and stuff like that. But, really, Road to the Show would be your first, would probably be the best way to start. And then Diamond Dynasty will suck you in pretty deep, like I've got. So like it's all I want to play. Like it's not quite the jump that I thought it might have been going to next gen. It looks, don't get me wrong, it looks crazy good. Like it's pretty awesome, but I think next year will be even
Yeah,
better.
year 2 on a
But-
new piece of hardware usually is better than that first year. Yeah. So, but that's awesome that you're enjoying it so well.
Yeah, I cannot. I played it way too much today, but it's a really, really, really good time. So if you got Game Pass, it's a no brainer. If you've only got a PlayStation and you like baseball, it's a no brainer.
Yeah.
It's just a really, really good baseball sim. So
Cool.
I'm loving it.
It's something I would even add in that because I picked it up as well. When you boot the game up, it'll ask you to go through like a tutorial thing. You can skip it if you want, but I would recommend if you've never played the game before to go through it because it'll have you try or pick the different styles for batting, pitching, outfield and stuff, and really kind of mess around with those and see which one you like the best because that is how I found out, the pitching style I wanted versus the batting style I wanted. And so that was one of the things I talked about on Twitter was I loved the level of customization with that game. And so it can be as simple as you want, or it can be as complex as you want. It's up to you. So I personally really loved that because that was something I was nervous about going in. And so
Cool.
it's a really cool feature. I love how they did that. But yeah, well, as far as what I've been playing then, I jumped into Avengers a little bit and quickly fell out of it because I think the story is fine. I think Kamala is awesome. I love her character. But I don't know, man. Every single other Avenger feels like a Walmart discount version of either what I know from the comic books or the movies. And it's kind of weird to hear Nolan North and Troy Baker in the game. And it just, to me, it doesn't really fit those characters. And the user interface is pretty confusing too, because I wound up jumping into multiplayer and getting the ending spoiled for me. Before jumping into the single player. And I was like, wait, what? So I overall, it's,
it is an all right game.
It's okay.
I enjoyed my time. I
guess.
actually played it with a buddy, and that was fun. I don't get to play it. It was that week that Hannah was gone, so I get to play it online some. It was fine. I enjoyed it for what it was. It's not a world beater. I don't need a lot more. I've still kept my copy to maybe keep it. I might keep it until Wakanda comes out, but I may not. I may have it sold by then. And by then it may even be on Game Pass or something crazy. But I definitely get the beef with it a lot of all the accessories and stuff were just. It was annoying.
The gear,
I would often just let them tell me whatever was best, and then I would go from there.
I think if they didn't have the gear system in the game, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more because I was like, this just doesn't need to be in this game at all. Like, give me the multiple costumes, right? Let me unlock those and then call it a day. But we don't need.
I think I enjoyed the combat a little bit more than you did.
I thought the combat was
just kind of seeing the different moves and stuff like that. But yeah, it was. I get a lot of people's frustration with it, but the time I put into it was enjoyable enough.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I paid $30 for it. I'm not mad that I spent $30. I got it is what it is.
And you can sell it and still make 20 off of it.
Exactly.
So in the end, you lost $10 on it.
So, but at least now I know. Not for me. Not for me. But you know what is for me? Monster Hunter Rise, a game that I have almost 60 hours put into right now. Like, holy cow. This game, y'all, is so stinking good that by the time I finished the high rank quest, they did a Nintendo Direct and was like, we're adding more monsters and more gear into the game for free. And I was like, yes, please give me more. And so I did do some of the new quests, and they put in one of the monsters from Monster Hunter World that I flipping hate. It's this flying one that drops these pods down that explode. It's hard, but at the same time, I'm like, let's get it. It's a new monster. Let's kill it. And then there's like all these other new monsters they added into the game that I haven't gotten to fight yet, but I started interacting with some of the new like gear, kind of unlocking those and seeing their upgrade paths and things like that. They put a transmog system in the game, so now you can, if you like the stats that you have on the gear, but you hate how you look because maybe you look like a hobo or I don't know, an angry fire porcupine or something, you can use these gift vouchers or these layered vouchers is what they're called, I think, and just change the look of your armor and make it all match so you look dope if you want, or not. And all you have to do is just play the new missions or just play a hunt, and it gives you a ticket so you can just keep upgrading, or not upgrading, but unlocking pieces of gear and putting it on your character, and you get to keep your stats. I'm like, this is so simple. Why couldn't Bungie come up with a system like this for Destiny 2? Those are their Destiny words are hard. Those that are Destiny 2 players and know about how messed up that transmog system is that they're putting in the game will get that reference. But man, Monster Hunter Rise just continues to just, it's like a warm hug from a burrito blanket.
Yeah,
every time I play it.
I'm not a Monster Hunter player. I've never played any in the series, but I'm so tickled to see how it's risen in the past few years between Monster Hunter World and now Monster Hunter Rise for the Switch. It's just I can tell they're just the cream of the crop kind of games for that stuff, and Monster Hunter fans are just just swimming in it right now and loving it. So it's just good to see, and then Capcom again, they're just crushing it here lately. They're knocking it out of the park with all their games. So kudos to them.
Yep. It feels good. And I love that Rise pun that you snuck in there. Maybe it was unintentional, but you snuck it in there, and I dug it. Yeah. I'm not kidding, dear listeners. If you have a Nintendo Switch, pick this game up. I mean, I know it's coming out next year on PC, but if you have a Switch and you can play it now, like, I highly recommend it. I love this game. It is so much fun. And I finally got all the gear that I wanted with my charge blade. So I have a good build where it just, oh man, it's so stinking good. This is an awesome, awesome game. I love it. And then this kind of going away from Monster Hunter Rise, here, this other game I picked up because I enjoyed Neir Automata a good amount, to the point where I got the platinum trophy. So Neir Replicant version, all the numbers, came out recently, and I picked it up for PS4, playing it on PS5. This is a weird flipping game, y'all. Like, I've played some weird games in my life, right? Persona 4 Golden is admittedly pretty weird. This is probably the weirdest game I've ever played that I can at least remember, that I probably haven't suppressed the memory of, at least.
That's saying something.
And and maybe I'm embellishing a little bit, but it's pretty weird.
The other Nier game was weird, man.
I know.
I played some of it and it was intriguing, but I'm like, this is too much for me.
This one in some ways is a little more weird because the main character is running around basically in her underwear. Now, thankfully, you can download the Neir Automata DLC and change your outfit to where she looks like 2B or whatever from
She's got a jacket on.
No, she's got a full like dress, and then like she's basically covered. So it's like, oh, PTL for that. But it's and I think it's because the intro or the beginning of the game is kind of slow. There's like, it's got a lot of building up, and it's kind of like fleshing out the world and trying to get you to understand like what's going on with this curse thing, and kind of what's going on with the grimoires, and which are these floating books, and this prophecy that's going on. And so it's a slow burn. I'm 5 hours in, and I'm like, this is a slow burn to a game. The combat's great because it's like Platinum Games. It's super fast. It's kinetic. It's a lot of fun to play, but man, and the side quests are garbage. Do not do the side quests. They make the experience really, really boring. I can't stand the side quests, but everything else, I'm like, I don't know why I'm still playing this game, but I want to know what's going on.
Because you bought it digitally and you can't comprehend not putting at least a little time into it.
I guess that's it. But it is what it is. I mean, I know there's some people in our community playing it and they're loving it. And so maybe I just haven't gotten to a specific point in the story just yet where that's when it really takes off. But my philosophy is if it's going to take more than a couple hours, it's like, come on. But again, I'm still like, I want to know what happens next, because I'm kind of curious. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know why I'm playing this instead of Monster Hunter. So I don't know. I'm waiting for it to get really weird, I guess. And that's when I'm like, you know what? Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. maybe that was intentional. They make it such a slow burn that by the time they throw the real weird stuff at you, you're like, yeah, all right, give me some more of that. I don't know. It is what it is. It's something else, man. But I don't mean to knock it if anybody else is enjoying it, because I know there's people in our community playing it and they're really digging it. But man, it is something else. That's where I'll leave it, just in the state of dazed and confused that I am, because that's how I feel when I play this game. So let's switch gears here to talk about what have we been reading. Hopefully there's nothing dazed or confused in there or anything weird, I guess. But let's find out. Micah, man, what have you been getting into?
Yeah, I'm bringing something that I'm pretty sure I brought to the podcast before, actually, oddly enough, but kind of like my, once or twice a year racing game I like to go back to. I like to go back to this little book by Tim Keller. It's called The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness. And it's a very short, it's almost like a pamphlet. It's like 40 pages, like one sitting. You could like go through it and read it all. But in this book, Keller examines 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 21 through chapter 4, verse 7. And in this section, this is where he's talking to the church of Corinth, and there's these factions being formed in the church, and some people are sort of clinging to Paul, and some people are clinging to Apollos, and some people are clinging to Cephas, these different leaders that have sort of come to the church of Corinth. And it's sort of just causing division in the church, and, pride and boasting is at the root of it. So Tim Keller kind of breaks it down into 3 chapters. And first he looks at the natural condition of the human ego. And he says the use of the word pride here in this passage in Corinthians translates to physio, which means overinflated, swollen, or beyond its proper size. And so when he's talking about the ego, he's saying it's a fragile object. It's either always too puffed up, too swollen, too overinflated, or so you have too high of a self-esteem, or you have too low of self-esteem. It's deflated, and it's always just out of balance. And so, he talks about, well, what is the transformed view of self? And he looks at the word judge. Keller looks at the word judge in the passage, and that translates to verdict here in the original language. And so basically Paul is saying, he's not looking to the church of Corinth or to any other human court, it says in the passage, for the verdict that he is a somebody. Christ has already supplied that verdict. In Keller's words, the trial is over. So that's kind of what he's saying here in the middle of the passage. Let me pull it up here. He says in chapter 4, verse 3, he says, I carry very, very little if I am judged by you or any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself. So what Paul is saying is that not only do I not care what you think about me, I don't even care what I think about me, because the only opinion that matters is the one that Christ holds. And so, sort of the essence of that gospel humility is that not thinking, more of yourself, being, too high of self-esteem, or thinking too low of yourself, is thinking of yourself less. And so, why can we do that? Well, it's because of that verdict that I was just talking about. Every other religion, there's a performance, and then you get a verdict. Buddhism, Muslim, anything. And only in Christianity, you get the verdict first, and then that brings the performance after it. What Paul is saying to the church of Corinth is that we're leaving the courtroom. The trial's over. We don't have to, every day we're on trial. If we're leaning too much on our ego, we have standards to live up to, and if we don't live up to them, well, maybe we'll be deflated, or if we really do, maybe we'll be overinflated. And that's not how the ego needs to be, not overinflated or deflated. It needs to be filled with Jesus, and it will properly work without even, it doesn't draw any attention to itself. It just works. So. Kind of just a great book about sort of that self-forgetfulness and focusing. It frees you up to, when you're not constantly thinking about what so-and-so is thinking about me, or how I've failed because of the sin in my life. You already have a verdict. The trial is over. You're out of the courtroom, and Jesus has won. So just a great sort of chopping up of that passage by Keller. And I just love coming to it. It's a great reminder. So yeah, the freedom of self-forgetfulness.
It's pretty awesome. That reminds me of some similar things because for those that don't know, because I don't think I ever really made this public, started up counseling again, and that was something that sounds very similar to kind of what was brought up in a previous, or I should say, recent session. And so that's pretty cool, man. I like that. Adam, what about you, man?
Yeah, book wise, I finished up our growth group, or small group is what we call them, growth groups, but it's basically a small group. We finished up Adopted for Life, and that last chapter of that book it's worth the price of admission by itself. So if you go to the bookstore, pick up that book. The last chapter is like eight pages. Just read the last chapter and you get a good summary of the whole book, and it's so good. But in my quiet time, and going through the book of Acts still, and was in chapter 12 recently, and just really just some interesting thoughts that R.C. Sproul was bringing out in the commentary that I read along with it. But it's looking at, so you got in the beginning of chapter 12, Herod is, taking out people. He's killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. It says when he saw that it pleased the Jews, he went ahead and arrested Peter and got put in prison. And then it says in verse 5, so Peter was kept in prison, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church. And then you get the story of Peter being led out of prison at night after being bound by chains by an angel of the Lord. And the point that Sproul was making that I thought was really good and interesting was you have two people being arrested, and basically Peter's being sought to be killed by Herod, but it just hadn't been he hasn't been executed yet. But you see in verse 5 that it says that earnest prayer was made to God by the church, and well, at least you assume that the church was praying the same for James, but yet James is killed and Peter isn't. And so the point that Sproul was making was just looking at how God answers prayers, and sometimes he answers it in a way that we're asking, like we see here, where they were praying for Peter to be released, and just that he would be taken out of the situation, and God works in a miraculous way so that he's taken out of that situation. But yet we read in verse 2 that the same, again, assuming the same prayers were probably prayed on behalf of James, but yet for James, God doesn't act in that way, and instead James is killed. But his point was, God is answering all of our prayers at all times. It's not I'm still praying for this, or God let me down, he didn't answer my prayer. Well, maybe he didn't answer your prayer the way that you were hoping he would, but no, he definitely answered your prayer. And in the same way, God answered the prayer of the church on James's behalf, but he didn't answer it the way that the church was wanting. And I'm sure they were wanting, James to be alive and to be with them, but that's just not how God acted. But again, seeing these things as answered prayer, and seeing, and it's not always hard things like leading to someone's death. It could be a job. It could be a lot of different things where God chooses to answer our prayer in a very different way. And sometimes what we see is really hard, but other times, as we look further down the road, we can see how God worked really good in the midst of that. We've been talking in that growth group in Adopted for Life, how if God would have answered our prayers through our lives, then a lot of the good things that we've experienced wouldn't have been the case. We talk about that with our son Brock. Brock wouldn't be in our family if we wouldn't have miscarried our embryo adoption. It just wouldn't have happened. Now, we can't imagine life without our son Brock, but that would have been what the case was. Brock is here because we miscarried that other baby. We have Ren in our family because our other adoption match didn't work out. The mom decided to keep that other baby boy. Both of those situations extremely hard, but as we look back now, God was still very good to us even after those hard things. And so it's just been a good reminder as we think of, God answers our prayers. And sometimes we're able to see on the other side how he was really good in that. Sometimes we don't see that, and we just have to keep trusting his goodness in the midst of that. But there's no doubt that God is answering our prayers. It's just a matter of how we're receiving them, and if we're recognizing and being okay with his answer being no, or maybe later, or I'm going to do this other thing, not the way that you were wanting, and saying, okay, that's the answer and I trust you.
It's good stuff, man. And what's kind of interesting about that is it's going to tie into what I've been reading about really God's plan. He has a plan, and our plans. I'm kind of tripping over my words here. Let me just back up. So, as longtime listeners know, I am not the biggest fan of devotionals. I have a hard time just getting into them, getting interested in them. The whole surface level kind of thing that most of them put out is just not really for me. And so I've been trying to find a new devotional this year because I tend to find some that I do enjoy, like New Morning Mercies by Paul David Tripp. I actually really enjoyed. And this year I was doing one that was 1 year church history that was okay for the most part, but it was more just like a brief history lesson with a Bible verse tacked on the end, and it wasn't really doing anything for me. And so as I was going through Amazon and looking at the different devotionals that are out there, I came across Tony Dungy's 1 year Uncommon Life daily devotional, and I was like, you know what? Tony Dungy seems like a cool dude. I've read one of his books on leadership before, and I like him, so yeah, I'll try it out. And so far, I'm like, this is already instantly better and more biblical than the 1 year church history thing, which it's kind of poor phrasing, but it's more biblically rooted in trying to draw you to the Bible and get you to live this stuff out. Whereas the 1 year church history was like dipping your toes in church history with a Bible verse tacked on the end. It wasn't really something that would grow you spiritually. It would just kind of give you some cool dates and events. And so today's, on April 29th, was talking about really just being patient with God's plan and his timing, and even in our frustrations that we have in waiting, it's still just to stay focused and to stay on that. And what's good about it for me is that really the last several devotionals I've been going through in this book have just really spoken very well and very timely into the current season of my life. And I won't get into details on that here, but it's just saying that God has a way of using things, whether it's a devotional or a book or music or whatever, to kind of speak into your life. And so it was cool to see this and read this morning. And he used 1 Corinthians 1:25 and 27 as the base for this devotional, which says, "The foolish plan of God is wiser than the wisest of human plans, and God's weakness is stronger than the greatest of human strength. God chose things the world considers foolish in order to shame those who think they are wise, and he chose things that are powerless to shame those who are powerful." And so it's just a good reminder of, like, if we don't feel like we're in control of something, it's okay, or if we feel like we don't have the answers, it's okay, because we know the one who does. And so I think for me, it just was a really good bit of an encouragement, a really good bit of a reminder to just trust that God's got this all figured out. God's got a plan, and different points will be fulfilled in his timing. And really all I have to do is just lean on him and trust him, and really everything else will be okay. And so kind of cool how a lot of this is kind of coming together on this episode here. Kind of love it when, not kind of love it, I do love it when that happens. So, dear listeners, hopefully that was a good bit of encouragement for you. Now, before we get into the topic of the show, just a quick reminder that, hey, if you love TRG, rate and review the show on your podcast app of choice. Maybe that's iTunes, Podchaser, some other podcast app. That way it lets other people know kind of what to expect from the show, but it also gives you an opportunity to maybe turn some people onto the show that maybe we're just kind of browsing and wouldn't have listened to it otherwise. So who would have known? You yourself could get people to listen to the show. But speaking of people getting people to do things and things that have nothing to do with that, let's talk about the summer that's coming up, because let's be honest, guys, summer is quickly approaching. That means E3 is coming back, and we're going to be able to participate in that, enjoy that as a community. which is going to be awesome because last year COVID forced a lot of cancellations and other things to just go online last year. And maybe some of us weren't aware of those, or it looked a little different. And so it kind of need to discuss, how is that going to affect this summer with some of these things that have gone online since then? So, dear listeners, join us as we discuss and possibly prophesy what's going to happen this summer in the gaming world.
The future has finally arrived.
Now, I already mentioned this. E3 is coming back. PTL for that. That's always been a highlight in the TRG community. We all get to hang out in the Facebook group, watch it together in the watch parties, although rip watch parties because Facebook is getting rid of them, so we'll have to do that in Discord. And it's just a good time where we can kind of hang out and, just have fun and just enjoy, come together as a community. Now, with that being said, I did post for some Patreon responses on Patreon, and Alex Castellanos writes in and he just screams, E3 all digital. I love it. I love the enthusiasm, Alex. He's coming in hot. He says, I have a feeling it's going to be a little less mind-blowing than in years past. I feel like companies are a bit more gun-shy regarding new projects and when we can expect them. So I'm thinking we'll see a lot of trailers and gameplay demos for games we already know about. I foresee a lot of known quantities at E3 this year and a lot of release date confirmations rather than new game announcements. I'm not saying it'll be no killer and all filler, but maybe more filler than other years. So guys, let's start off with this. Let's start off with E3. What are we thinking when it comes to E3? Do you think a lot of companies are going to play it safe? Do you think they're still going to come out guns blazing? Micah, let's start off with you, our resident newsman. What do you think is going to happen at E3 this year?
Yeah, I think there's going to be. I see what Alex is saying, and I tend to agree. But with there being new hardware that we just have, and potentially, and we might get into it, some new hardware announced, I think we're actually going to have some pretty surprising big hitters. I think the stuff that is brought from some of our quote unquote known quantities are going to be good and kind of fresh. For example, I'm thinking about Microsoft in particular. Not all, but a lot of the investments they've been doing in their development studios we're going to see the fruit of at this E3. I think finally a lot of it. So it's going to be sort of a bunch of new things that are going to look and feel fresh. So those are all going to feel pretty big. I think we're going to have some megatons, and I think, like I said, like I hinted at, I think we're going to get the Switch Pro announcement at E3.
Really?
Yeah. So I think that'll be hype, obviously. So, I do see what Alex is saying. There's going to be a lot of updates to known quantities and a few big ones here and there. But I think those big ones are going to be big enough for us to be like, oh, wow, that was a great E3.
Okay. Adam, what about you, man?
Yeah, I think this year, last year was such a weird year with COVID and with the systems being released and not knowing what was going to be pushed back, all this just chaos of, waiting every day of, are we going to get system news? Are we going to get system news? When are we going to get the price? When are we going to get the release date? What's the hardware? All these things. It was just chaos. But I think this year you're going to see, I know Xbox has already said they're going to be there. Nintendo said they're going to be there. PlayStation will do something that week. And I think it's going to, honestly, I think this year is really big as the fanboy console wars are really, it seems like it's heating up. There's been a lot of really interesting stats coming out on PlayStation, how it's just still crushing. Even with profitability, with consoles, fastest selling, all these things. The kind of, I think Colin Moriarty was saying on Twitter, the inertia that they had from last generation is just still pushing them. Xbox may be winning the sound bites, but PlayStation is still crushing. I think we talked about that maybe a lot last episode or at some point recently. So, but I think, so all that to say, I think all of them are going to have really big showings this year because it seems like it's heated up. I think Xbox is going to give us that Halo release date. Hopefully we're going to get some other, some news from them, whether that's Game Pass or some updates of some of their studios that we haven't really heard from. I think I think E3, that season is when we might get our Horizon Zero Dawn news. If it's coming this year, which it better be for my fantasy critic. I think God of War seems, I'd be shocked if it comes out this year, but who knows? Again, I think we get an update there where they start to, they remind us, and we've been getting a lot of this recently, right? There's been a lot of news about PlayStation saying, hey, we've got exclusives. We're pouring money into them. We're still getting into experimental games, all these things. They've been kind of reassuring, hey, don't forget who we are. We've got great games. And so I think we're going to see some of that in that E3 season. So again, it won't be officially a part of E3, but around that time, we'll get a really big state of play, I think. And then Nintendo, who knows what they're going to do. Maybe we get some sort of Zelda All-Stars or whatever. There's been rumors of that, because at that point it'll be kind of their first really big thing post Mario 35. It's now Zelda 35, so maybe that's where, outside of Skyward Sword, we'll get something else big from them. That's ideal. I don't know if it'll happen, but that's ideal, is for them to say, hey, here's Wind Waker and Twilight Princess in a bundle, and I don't know, maybe one other. That'd be sweet if they gave us one more, but I don't know. That's kind of on the front end. What I see is I think we're going to get really good showcases from the big three.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we do, at least from Nintendo. I am going to be honest with you. I'm probably going to come into this a little more jaded than probably what both of y'all are and some of our listeners are, because I've had it with Nintendo. They don't even confirm this really. This is just rumors, and I'm getting my own expectations just thrown out of whack. But where the flip-flop is the Metroid Prime trilogy? Huh? Where's it at, Nintendo? I don't trust y'all anymore. I actually do. But the thing is, when it comes to this, I think we're going to see some surprises. I think when it comes to Xbox, I think we're going to see Halo Infinite shown off. I think it's going to be in a better state than what it was last summer, I think was when they showed it, or last fall, one of the two. I think it's going to be in a better state, and we're going to see it. And I think they're going to do a beta as well. I think Xbox is going to announce that. I think that's going to be the big thing for Xbox, and maybe a new IP from one of the studios that they acquired. But when it comes to Nintendo, man, you can't trust them, dude. Nintendo's just they're gonna screw with us. I don't believe that they're gonna honor Metroid's anniversary. I think they will honor Zelda's anniversary and do kind of what Adam was saying. Put Wind Waker and Twilight Princess in a bundle, and maybe a third game in there. Maybe the Skyward Sword will be like part of that bundle. I don't know, but I think E3 is going to be pretty interesting. I'm going to say this though: expect it to be weird and a little cringy, only because whenever game companies try to do these online conferences for the first time, they're always a little weird. So I don't say that to discourage people from watching. I'm just saying temper your expectations, because just don't go into this expecting it's going to be a big production thing. It's just,
let me break my heart. Don't try to guard my heart. Let me break it. It's been broken so many times. It's just let them break my heart a couple more times, Logan.
Who, Nintendo?
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah. Logan, I think you're right, man, about Halo. I think that's gonna, obviously they're gonna show it. I think it's gonna look stinking good, like really, really good. Maybe game of the show good kind of thing. Yeah, you're right, Adam. It better. And
we've been saying this for a year. It better.
Yeah, and the my sort of hot take with that is, I don't know if it's a hot take. It's gonna be moved to 2022. I think.
Oof.
I think it's. I think that's going to be the trend you see. And that's going back to Alex's point. I think that's like a lot of. We're not going to know about any new things that are coming out in 2021, or very, very little. So I think anything that you hear is going to be, oh, that's 2022. Starfield, 2022. God of War, that's actually 2022, obviously, and I think Halo's going to be 2022. I think if we get, some of you listeners are like, Micah, I heard you back on the predictions episode. You said no Switch Pro this year. Well, I did. I'm sticking to it. They're going to announce it at E3, but it's not coming until March 2022.
Just so the dear listeners are aware, I loaned Micah a pair of flip-flops for this episode. So he has a honorary flip-flop privileges.
No flip flop. I'm still sticking to. I said no Switch Pro in 2021. I'm still sticking to that. It's going to be March next year or sometime
but they're
early
gonna
2022.
announce it. See, okay.
Yeah. So
You just have one flip flop on at this point, not the full set.
yeah. So like Breath of the Wild 2, that's going to be a launch game for the Switch Pro. That'll release along with it. I think the like the new Pokemon, the Pokemon Legends Arceus, the big one, that's going to be Switch Pro game, kind of like that.
Okay.
The more that what you just said, it's Zelda 35. They've got to hit this year, right?
Hey, you wanted your heart broken, Adam. You said I want them all to break my heart.
You get the trilogy or whatever. You get Wind Waker and all the ones you want for 35.
Breath of the Wild 2 this year.
You don't release a game early.
They probably won't. But they've got to. Same with Halo. Halo has to hit this year. They can't. No excuses. You lock them in a room for 48 hours and tell them to work nonstop if you have to.
Oh my gosh.
You have got to hit this year.
Adam, we're against crunch. We're not supposed to tell the developers.
That game must have been horribly broken and ugly, and they're making a new game if it is pushed again. They must, because they showed footage. And they must have just been like, yeah, this is not going to work. And so we're basically not starting from scratch, but we're going back to 50% and we're reworking all of this because they cannot. Unless you want to just, again, Game Pass is great and you've got a lot of good things going, but to push Halo again, even though you need a good game, a really good Halo game more than you need a game in the fall, you got to have both. Yeah. You just can't. Yeah. You just can't.
I agree. I will say this. I'm pretty confident in this one. We're going to see Forza Horizon 5 shown on Xbox.
Yeah.
And I'm there for it. I love Forza. I booted that up the other night on my PC and I'm like, why am I doing that? I got an Xbox coming tomorrow. Why don't I just wait and do it? But like the thing is like, it's so good. It's again, I've said this multiple times on the podcast. If you want a good racing game, buy an Xbox or I guess build a PC and play Forza Horizon or Motorsport, whichever one tickles your fancy. But the thing is, we're going to see Forza Horizon 5. We might even see the next Forza Motorsport announced, and then that would be wild if they just released both of them in the fall, but I don't think they'll do that because I feel like that would cannibalize the sales of one, and it just would be a recipe for disaster. But we are going to see those games, and I'm pretty stoked for it. But something I'm curious about, and this is a bit weird for our podcast because normally we're the Sony Pony Power Hour show. What are we thinking Sony's going to do that week? Because they've been known to do their own thing. But what kind of crazy hijinks are they going to pull?
Yeah, I think like Adam said earlier, we're going to get some solid dates for Horizon Forbidden West. We're going to get a date for that, and we'll probably get a window for God of War, like summer 2022 or something like that.
If we've already discussed this, I'm just gonna be honest. I totally missed it. So,
well, Adam just briefly mentioned it, but I think some of the things will come up, like that rumored Silent Hill, or maybe the rumored Metal Gear Solid remake, something like that. They'll have something like that ready to go, I think, and potentially they could. I don't know if it would be at the E3 State of Play or whatever, but I think it's time to pull the trigger on Blue Point and Housemarque and purchasing those studios and announcing that. I think they need to do one or both of those, and that would be a good move for them at that point in time.
Wait. Does Sony not already own Housemarque?
No, they're second party.
Really? I thought they bought them at some... Okay, yeah, I agree with that. They need to just buy them up.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Adam, what are you thinking, man?
Yeah, I mean, they've got to show the heavy hitters and just keep talking about some of those exclusive. I was kind of looking through some of the different games on our Fancy Critic to see which ones maybe we don't have dates for. I'm interested to see a little bit more about this Stray game. Hopefully maybe we get some gameplay, like what's going to be like playing as a cat in this robot world.
Yeah.
So maybe we get some fun stuff. I think at the PlayStation State of Play or whatever we get, here you go, guys. We're gonna get the Dying Light date in the PlayStation, the PlayStation State of Play.
I think that game's
because when you think of Dying Light, you think of PlayStation more than I think it was on Xbox, right?
I think that just proves your point because you're like, I don't remember it on PlayStation. Did it ever come to Xbox?
And so I think that you see that, and that'd be a fun one to get. Just again, I'm excited for some more Dying Light. But yeah, I mean, I think what Micah said, I'd love to, the biggest thing for me when I think of thinking about the summer and E3 is the most guaranteed thing is that Ratchet and Clank is going to be just freaking amazing.
Yes.
And so as long as that game is baller, because when is E3? It's right around that release date, right? June 11th.
Yeah, it's June.
Is Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, E3 is June 12th through
to
15th, so it's literally right there.
So that's all you need. If you want to win E3, you get a 90 on Metacritic with Ratchet and Clank, and people are going to be talking about how unbelievably awesome that game is. It's got the hardware, it's showing you all the things with the hardware and the controller. You want to start off right, that game is freaking amazing. And they carry that momentum on with some other, hey, oh, you like this exclusive game on our system? Well, here's some updates on some of our other ones. And don't forget, we're the best place to play the best games in the world. So
yeah, I agree with that.
With Returnal getting crazy good reviews also. Again, it'll start building into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of felt that earlier today when I was looking at Returnal's early review scores coming out, and I was just like, here it goes. Get on the roller coaster, y'all, because it's about to go down. We've got Returnal, and then we're gonna have Ratchet, and then it's just gonna be a snowball effect where we're just right back in that time where it's like, man, Sony's got some great first party games. So yeah, it's gonna happen. Micah, you brought up 2 games that make me think of Kojima.
Oh, yeah.
And it brought this to my mind, because there's been stuff going around with Xbox possibly working with Kojima putting a game on Xbox. What do you guys think that is? Do you guys think it's going to be Death Stranding coming to Xbox, or do you think it's going to be an exclusive IP for Xbox?
I'm glad you brought this up. I was literally going to ask it if you didn't.
Okay.
I think, this is sort of weird. I actually haven't even thought that it could be Death Stranding coming to Xbox. That could be it. That's actually decently likely. But I think they snagged Kojima. I think Xbox did it. I think they got him.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to release his next game
Here's
exclusive.
$1 billion.
Yeah, I think they straight up did it. They went and gave him that. They backed up the dump truck of cash and said, "Kojima, be as weird as you want to be," and he said yes. Yeah, I think they're going to come out with Kojima's next game as Xbox exclusive, 100%. Well, 95%. I feel like that's going to happen. Yeah.
I like how you gave yourself an extra 5% just in case you need to be like, well, hey. I said 95%. There was a 5% chance that
exactly
that it wasn't going to happen.
Like a forecaster.
Anyway, yep.
Weather forecaster.
Adam, what do you think, man? Do you think we're going to get a Kojima weird experience on Xbox where instead of carrying around a baby in a container, you're going to carry around Master Chief in a container?
You know what would be the craziest thing if somehow they threw all the money at Capcom, they threw all the money at Kojima, and they somehow get the Metal Gear Solid remake. That would be wild.
Cry.
Wasn't it Konami?
That would be wild.
Wasn't it Konami that published it, not Capcom?
Or Konami, whatever,
okay.
Whoever it was. Konami, you're right, Konami, yeah. That would be a story.
You know what?
Again, Microsoft's got the money.
You know what?
But I think they probably just get, I think Kojima does come to Microsoft. He has a game. I don't think it's Metal Gear Solid. I don't think it's connected to Death Stranding. And they probably announced the partnership, but I doubt we even get. Maybe you get a name of a game, but I could see them parading him out and say, "Hey, we've got a deal. Kojima is signed a deal. We've got a game in early development, and we look forward to telling you more about it later." And I wouldn't even be shocked if you don't even get a title.
Yeah,
but maybe you do.
Well, that's exactly how he rolled out Death Stranding. People thought that, like, oh, there's no way he's got anything. He just, was talking about looking at an engine with Gorilla and everything. How does he have it? And he straight up walked onto the Sony stage and was like, here's Death Stranding. It looks weird.
Sure he did. You don't know what's going on. That's part of the point. I don't even know what's going on, to be honest with you.
Here's a naked man on a beach with babies on the floating up on.
So it could be something like that for Xbox as well.
You guys remember Norman Reedus? You guys like him, right? Here he is. I was just thinking earlier, like, how crazy would it be if Microsoft bought Konami and then put Kojima in charge of Konami and just Oh, dude,
that'd be something. That's pretty funny, actually.
that would be on par for 2021 at this point. It's just like let's just keep rolling in the weirdness, man. Let's just keep it happening. So let me switch gears back to Nintendo again. I feel like this is going to be a recurring theme for this episode. I'm going to go back to Nintendo, just like a scorned lover or whatever. So Metroid Prime 4. Do you guys think we're going to see anything about that? Adam, what about you?
I mean, I don't know, Logan. I don't even know what to think about
Just
that.
break my heart, man.
We want the trilogy. I don't think you get both of them.
I don't either.
I think you get one or the other. And if that is real, if a trilogy is real,
I thought you were about to say Metroid Prime 4 is real, and I'm like, probably isn't.
No, if the trilogy is real, you think we've got to get that. But maybe, I don't know, maybe they pull a rabbit out of a hat and they'd say, here's a little update on Metroid Prime 4. It's a little bit of a reel, and then they're like, but while you're waiting, here's your trilogy. That would get everybody going crazy, but that seems like way too much to ask.
Yeah.
Logan, I just sent you and Adam a text because I wanted to prove it. I have on my notes the last thing for Nintendo, Metroid Prime 4, capital yes. It's coming.
Capital yes.
It's part of my Switch Pro March 2020. This is a Switch Pro game, and we're finally going to see this. This is one of those, like I said at the beginning, we're going to get some hype nuggets, and this is going to be one of them. We're getting Metroid Prime 4. It's happening this year. Get hyped.
I love that you just called it Hype Nuggets. I'm tempted to name this episode Hype Nuggets. like hot summer Hype Nuggets is probably what the episode
is
this
all
episode
about. Hype. It's like that. It should be called Hype the Show. So yeah,
Hype the Show. It's funny you bring that up because it really has. That's really what E3 has become. It's no longer been this thing where it's just for press. It's like literally trying to build the hype and get as many pre-orders as you possibly can. And so, with that being said, what else have we not covered in regards to E3? What else do you guys think is going to happen? Micah, Adam, do you guys have any other crazy things?
Well, not necessarily about E3. I don't know if we want to shift to just thinking of the summer in general, because I think E3 is a big part of it, but it'll be interesting to see how the Summer Game Fest and the Jeff Keighley stuff, how that plays along with E3, along with, I think we still get a lot of the different showcases and different studios doing their own thing. And I don't think it's all going to be an E3 week still. I think some people might want to be trying to hit that date, but as they get closer, they're going to realize we're not ready. So let's just wait. We can, instead of being a part of this week, if we wait 2 weeks, we can still muster all the attention we want, and maybe even more if we go our own way by waiting 2 weeks or something like that. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see. Again, last year was just so unique with COVID and the new systems releasing. There was so many opportunities to just get some information. Maybe it's really pulled back this year and we don't get that so much in the summer. Maybe it is just E3 along with some other, smaller directs or state of plays, and you don't have so much that extra stuff. But that's what I'm interested to see is how big is Summer Games Fest this year and compared to last year, because that not really having E3 last year, that really took off and it felt like we had something every week. But do we have everything? Do we have something every other week? Once a month after E3, I don't know. I think that's what I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that much, Adam, with Summer Games Fest coming into its second year, kind of building momentum. Of course, Jeff Keighley's behind it, so it's going to have some weight to it. The announcements might be spread out a little bit. Keighley seems to attract the the hot up and comer indie. That's like, you're going to know this game by the time it comes out, but you might not know it when it's announced. And he focuses and showcases a lot of things like that. And while sometimes, not all the time, leaving the big boy announcements to the big stage like E3. So I'm thinking he's going to have a lot of really good looking games that are kind of that caliber, maybe, with a couple of, bigger things peppered in. But that's a good point about Summer Games Fest. I don't know. Man, I keep thinking back to Alex's original question. Like, is this going to be more of a whimpery E3 or just kind of a, curb your enthusiasm kind of thing because of COVID and delays and everything else? I still, it's hard to say, but I still think we're going to have, like I said, some reason to be excited. And yeah, I do think I think people are going to companies are going to try to pack their news into E3 because last year was just so slack and disappointing and everything else. I think maybe a lot of people do want to kind of get back to that. Here's this moment we can all share together as a gaming community.
I do have something. I was, scrolling through Twitter a little bit as Mike is talking, and I came across a just random ad for a Nintendo game that we're going to get this summer. We're going to get the announcement. It's happened the last 2 years, at least 2 years. Maybe 3 years. But we get a Xenoblade Chronicles X release on the Nintendo Switch in the next year, and it gets announced this summer. That game it was Wii U. No one played it. Xenoblade the momentum is still there with 2 in the definitive edition release. I think we get Xenoblade Chronicles X. There's my hot take. Calling it now.
Good. I like that.
I'm going to be honest. I kind of hope we don't because I played that. I put 30 hours into that game, and it's like Neir Replicant again. I'm like, I don't know why I'm playing this, but I want to know what's going on.
That was before you really got into the Xenoblade Chronicles after you've played the definitive edition. Like, you had played the original, but you didn't really dig it the first time you played it. You played it on Switch and you loved it.
No.
You get this on the Switch.
I played Xenoblade Chronicles on 3DS and really enjoyed it. And then I picked up Chronicles X thinking I would. And then I was like, this is not near as good as the first game.
Are we overthinking it a little bit? I mean, I love the hot take, Adam. But I mean, is it as simple as, we haven't had a 3D Mario in a while. A new one. Is it time for a new 3D Mario, like a proper one, a follow-up to Odyssey? Is it time?
No. I mean, yes, but no.
I'm not saying that's going to be their big time game. I'm just saying they love remaking some Xenoblade Chronicles.
I agree. I like it.
And so I just happened to come up on it. That's not like the biggest
no,
take.
but I think maybe we're glazing over the fact that there might actually be a new Mario here. No joke.
That would make sense because the whole 35th anniversary.
Give me Breath of the Wild 2. I don't even want to talk about it.
Give you who?
I need it too bad for Fantasy Critic. It's like Fantasy Critic is ruining me like fantasy football ruined me. It's got me. All that I'm thinking about is the games that it's ruined me as all my predictions at E3 are going to be for the games that I've now drafted. So thanks for ruining me as a games commentator with his fantasy video game.
Adam's over here trying to speak things into existence based off of his fantasy league.
Logan, I'm literally pulling up Adam's team right now. He's got Dying Light 2 on his team and Stray.
I'm mixing it up. I'm bringing them into existence, baby.
This whole episode was just a ploy to get Adam to speak things into existence so that he could win a fantasy league.
It's going to be really good, Xbox exclusive.
Wait, what's going to be a good Xbox exclusive?
It's called The Gunk.
The Gunk. What the heck is The Gunk?
It's from the people that made SteamWorld.
Wait, when did you get Ace Attorney Chronicles?
Yeah, y'all didn't even see that one coming. Those games always get reviewed really well.
Oh, man. I didn't even see you pick that up. Okay.
That's an easy 10 points.
There, bearded brethren.
Oh, my
easy
gosh.
10 points.
I'm just over here like, what in the world is happening?
Sorry, we'll stop talking about the
You missed it,
fantasy league.
Logan. You got to get on it next year. It's been a ton of fun.
I'm just going over this list on Game Informer's website that is talking about, well, not really talking about, it's listing the games that are coming out. And I was going to ask if there's any games that get delayed, but it looks like a lot of these are pretty set in stone. Because I'm going through this list of games here, of games that haven't been announced yet. There's one in particular that I'm looking at right now, and I'm like, we haven't really heard about this game in a long time. Micah, what do you think? What do you think is that game?
Logan, are you talking about Elden Ring?
No, I was actually talking about Hollow Knight Silk Song, but let's talk about both while we're on the topic.
Let's do it.
So let's start with Hollow Knight Silk Song, because we literally every single Nintendo Direct that we have gone into this year, We've been expecting something about Silk Song, and I've gotten nothing. Is E3 the time of this year? The time? Why my words are hard? Is E3 where we're going to finally see not only the game but the date?
I mean, I sure hope so. Again, talking about the league, that's my number one draft pick is Silk Song. So
I feel like I'm missing
I can't
out.
believe we haven't heard anything
I think it's
yet.
got to
Like,
be
that's
this year. So
ridiculous.
yeah, E3 would be a great landing spot for Hollow Knight Silk Song.
Especially since I was gonna say, especially since all eyes are going to be on E3. I mean, what better way to show the date?
Mm-hmm. That would be a great padding for Nintendo. I'm assuming it would show up at their conference. Yeah, Silk Song. And Elden Ring, you know, that's at the Microsoft, or at least this was last time I was on at Microsoft's conference. You think they'll show that one?
I think they will.
No.
I think they will. I mean, I hope they do. What was it? It was earlier this year that there was some like leaked footage or something that came out
Straight
of that
up.
game, wasn't it?
Yeah, like an open world kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know. I mean, if that's the current state of the game, I probably wouldn't show it off because from what I heard, it looked pretty bad. But, you know, if the game has progressed to where it's in a pretty good shape, why not bring it to E3 on Xbox's stream and just let people take a look at it? Because, I mean, people are dying. Not dying. That's poor choice of words. I'm sorry. People are hungry for more information on this game. It's been how many years since we last got, like, since it was even announced? I mean, what is
2
going
or
on
3
with
years?
that game?
Yeah. It's been
Yeah,
a
I
while.
mean, we need something to hear about. We need to see something. So I think E3 is a good place for that.
Well,
You know?
how about this? Let me ask you guys this. What is the number one game you're looking forward to?
Don't ask me that question. Everybody knows what the answer is. And it's a game that probably doesn't even actually exist.
In general?
Well,
or
you know,
that we've
that
heard
has
of?
been announced.
What's yours, Logan?
I mean, again, this game probably doesn't even exist at this point. But, and I was going to say Metroid Prime Trilogy, but let's just go to Metroid Prime 4 because I feel like this game, I feel like this is going to be the carrot at the end of the stick that Nintendo's going to use to keep me tagging along on the Switch for years until they go, oh, by the way, Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a launch title on our next console. And it's like, thanks, guys.
I guess why I said Prime 4 is coming. If it doesn't show up to this E3, I guess you've got to think like,
Abandon all
what
hope.
is really happening with, like, truly what is going on with Prime 4? That's why I'm sort of like,
How
it's
long has
got
it
to be this
been?
year.
3 years?
I think 3 or 4. I'll look it up.
4, I think.
Since we've seen they just showed the logo or
I
whatever.
think it was 4 years. It might be 5 years. No, maybe not.
Surely not. Maybe. But surely
Logan, check
not.
us on that.
It was back in 2017.
Yeah.
So it'll be 4 years this year.
How about you, Adam? What's your most favorite? Looking forward to?
Probably it's gonna be the Breath of the Wild 2 or God of War.
Yeah.
Either of those. I don't think God of War is this year. So if I'm thinking this year or hoping this year, I mean, Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be just dope. I mean, again, everything about that game was magical. So, and I could say, again, two of my top 5 games of all time, Breath of the Wild and God of War.
Yeah.
If not potentially 1, 2 is how much I love those games. So that's probably Breath of the Wild, thinking it's actually going to come. So
Yeah. I
would love to. I think it makes sense to launch it with a Switch Pro, but yeah, I would love to see that this year.
Yeah, I've got God of War as well as my number one most anticipated. Right there below it is Horizon 2, Horizon Forbidden West. But if you're talking about a little bit more of a probably this year kind of game.
Well, what I like about that is I want to see these games that, okay, both of those games will likely come to the PlayStation 4, so maybe it's not. But I want to see the big games on the PlayStation 5 with the DualSense. Like, show me why we got these new systems and what you can really. Again, we're getting a taste of that with Returnal. We're really going to see it on display, I think, with Ratchet and Clank 2. But I want to see it with one of those games, Horizon or God of War, to really show us, hey, again, don't get it twisted. This is where you come to play games. yeah, there's some games to play on Xbox, and you got 150 or 2,000 or whatever on Game Pass, but it's not like this.
Yeah.
So, because that's where you just continue to. Those are the system sellers.
So, guys, while I'm sitting here and thinking through some things, which is always a dangerous activity for me to take on, what if, and again, dear listeners, I know you guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about Metroid, but what if we've been thinking about this Metroid trilogy thing all wrong, and what if it's not Prime, but instead we get Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, and Metroid Zero Mission. Actually, no, take that back. Take out Super Metroid, put in Metroid 2, Samus Returns, all put on the Switch in a collection. Why not do that?
Maybe.
Why not do both?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
we
why
could do.
not?
Here's the problem.
I'll take both.
Here's the problem with doing both is that Nintendo would never do it because Nintendo is, well, Nintendo. So I don't know. I don't see it happening. But
That sounds super fun, but
it would be pretty cool.
I don't know.
But I don't know if that would really drive hype for Metroid Prime 4, which is really what they need right now. But I don't know. Well, guys, do you have any other closing thoughts on the summer and kind of what's going to happen over the summer before we land this plane?
No.
No, not really. I think we chopped it up. Like I said, get hype, not too hype.
Oh,
but get
I
hype.
got one more. What game haven't I made? Far Cry 6. I think we're gonna see that this year at E3. And Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, Shining, and Shining Pearl. Those are the only games I hadn't mentioned yet for my fantasy critic.
Oh, okay.
So I got to will those all
You
into
gotta go.
existence. So,
Excellent.
yeah, I think we're going to see all these games, aren't we? Yeah, we're going to see.
Adam, we're not scoring based on what we talked about in this episode. You know?
I know we're not. I'm just trying. Again, we were joking about me willing all my different games in existence. Those were the only 3 that I hadn't mentioned, I think, from my team.
You know what's going to be funny? And I think there's a little bit of me that thinks Adam might do this. He's going to be watching E3 and like giving a check mark and giving himself some points anytime something that he mentioned in this episode.
This isn't even the preview of E3. This is just discussion really of the summer. But yeah, I just wanted to throw those in there just as a joke.
Yep.
Hey, it was like when we had our advertise, or when I got that side job with talking about Stadia.
Oh yeah, you brought up Stadia throughout the episode. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, too bad. I was about to say, how's Stadia doing? But that's a topic for another day. Anyway, dear listeners, thank you for listening to this episode. Hey, if you have some ideas of what's going to happen over the summer, let us know, whether that's in the Facebook group, Discord, Twitter, Instagram even. Feel free to drop your thoughts on there. And if you're on Patreon, drop them over there in the thread as well. We'd love to hear them and have a discussion based on that. But with that being said, episode 190 is coming to a close. But before we let you go, some Recos, some things you should definitely be checking out.
If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up.
Micah, let's kick it over to you, man. What are some things that the dear listeners should check out?
Yeah, here in literally T-minus 10 minutes, I'm going to be booting up Returnal and having a blast, hopefully, with that new Housemarque game. So I wanted to recommend sort of where they came from. The old Housemarque games that you can get primarily on PS4, but some on PS3 as well. Resogun, Super Stardust, Dead Nation. These are all like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 twin-stick shooters. So if you like things like Geometry Wars from back in the day on Xbox 360 or something like that, it is those games on steroids, and they are all so good. And there's a good chance, if you've been in the PlayStation ecosystem, that you already own them through PlayStation Plus. Resogun and Dead Nation especially have been offered, I know. So check out an old Housemarque game. They're going to be $15 or less. Resogun is so good. That was a launch game for the PS4. So check out an old Housemarque game. That's my reco.
I would also throw in, check out Matterfall, because that one was a lot of fun, at least in my opinion. But yeah. Adam, what about you, man?
Don't really have anything outside of the usual. I mean, like I said, I kind of gave my reco earlier with MLB The Show, but that'd probably be the one that I'd stick with outside of nothing new really other than that. But yeah, check out MLB The Show.
Fair enough. Well, guys and gals, my reco is subscribe to our YouTube channel if you have not done so already. I know we broke 600 subscribers here recently, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, head on over to youtube.com/thereformedgamers. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. And check out some of the content we got on there. As always, it is family friendly, with the exception of the Resident Evil Village playthroughs. I age restricted those because it's an M-rated game, and you have to be signed in and over 18 to watch those videos anyway, because it's pretty graphic. Well, not too graphic. It's not like Mortal Kombat graphic, but yeah, I age restricted it for a reason. So you can check that out. Everything else is family friendly. You can have fun with that. There's unboxings over there. There's reviews. There's Micah's video of why I love Journey. And there's a few others that I'm sure I'm forgetting. But there's also episodes of the podcast on there. So maybe you're at work or something, you want to listen to it. And, maybe you aren't using Spotify, but you can pull up YouTube on your computer. You can pull up our episodes on there and listen on there as well. So definitely head on over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel there. But yeah, that being said, thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. As always, if you'd like to support what we do here, maybe you really love what we do, there's a few ways that you can support us. You can go over to our merch shop. What link is in your show notes, and get yourself some sweet merch. Summer's coming. You need some new t-shirts, maybe a new hat as well to kind of keep the sun out of your eyes when you're mowing your yard or just hanging out with some friends. And so you can head on over to our merch shop, pick that up, and there might be some new designs coming. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. But head on over to the merch shop, pick yourself some stuff up, and treat yourself. Maybe you want to support the podcast on a monthly thing where you get early uncut access to all of our episodes, some behind the scenes, and more. You can go over to patreon.com/thereformedgamers and support the show as low as $1 a month. Get you early uncut access to all of our episodes, and it helps us continue to get to do what we do with the show. But as always, you can support us by following us on our website, thereformedgamers.com. I almost said youtube.com. You can follow our website, thereformedgamers.com. Has links to all of our socials and everything else. We'd love for you to connect. Not for you. Words are hard. Oh, my Lanta. We would love for you to get connected with the TRG community and meet some new friends and possibly your new gaming squad, so to speak, in whatever game it is you're playing. So you can always go over to our Discord server. You can go to our Facebook group and get connected. You can follow us on Twitter and get connected that way. You can go to our Instagram, Facebook. There's a lot of ways that you can connect with us. The links to everything will be in your show notes. But, gentlemen, here's to a good summer of gaming. And PTL, the E3 is back. But until next time, dear listeners, be a dear, keep it locked here, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Reformed Gamers, the podcast all about theology and gaming. TRG is edited by Dear Ear Productions, so thank them for the buttery smooth tones in your ear. If you're looking for extra content, head on over to youtube.com/thereformedgamers. The Reformed Gamers is entirely fan-supported over on patreon.com/reformedgamers by our dear patrons. The following deer are at the producer level or higher and will forever be thanked at the end of each show, as long as their pledge comes through, or we forget to update the audio. Those people are Mr. Butts, Caleb, Alex Castellanos, Pastor Shay, and Wesley Ray. Thank you for your support on patreon.com, keeping our controllers charged, and supporting Logan in his never-ending quest to collect them all. Platinum trophies, that is. So be a dear and keep it locked here. Keep listening. We'll catch you later.